Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of the Getting Started with Booster series. If you don't know what Booster is, I recommend you to go to the first episode and check that out. Everything is well explained down there. So in this episode, we're gonna take a look at commands and how to create them. And just as a quick reminder, commands are imperative orders that we give our system. So in this diagram, which is the structure of a Booster application, there's an episode for that. Our front-end application is communicating with the GraphQL endpoint provided by Booster. Here, one of the first things that happen is that we might submit a command. As you can see, it's the right part of the pipeline of your app, and generally they will be executed or submitted when when our user performs some kind of action. For example, in the case of the application that we are developing, which is a bank account, our commands could be create a bank account, deposit money, or withdraw money. So when these commands are submitted, they're going to reach our application and their command handlers will be executed. Remember, a command handler is just a method inside of the command class. We'll see them right in a minute. And after that command handler gets executed, well, more like the last part of this command handler will register an event. We're gonna have another episode on events, but right now we're gonna dive in right into creating our commands and our handlers. We're gonna open up our IDE, and here inside we're gonna open up a terminal. You can do it inside of the IDE or opening up your regular favorite terminal, whatever. And here we're gonna use our Boost CLI tool. So in some previous episode, we've been creating a new project. So let's review what the Boost new command does. Here we can see that we can use Boost new to generate commands, entities, events, projects, like a lot of stuff. So Booster will create all the little boilerplate code or like the required minimal code that is needed for creating all these things. So let's go ahead and create a new command. This command is gonna be called, for example, create account. So we type it right in, we write boost new command, and after that, the name of the command. And here we can specify the fields that this command will have. Generally, when you create a command, you will pass to it all the required information that is needed to make sense in your system. For example, when you're creating an account, at least we might need to know the owner. We can add more stuff like add address or other kind of information, but just to keep the example minimal, we're going to be using an owner field. And how do we specify fields for a command? So we go ahead and write dash dash fields, and we write the fields in the following form. We write the name of the field, first of all. We're going to write owner over here, and we write colon, and we're going to write the type of this field. So the owner, we could write here an object or whatever, but to make things simple and also to be able in the future, for example, to represent our owners of the account as a possible entity apart, we're going to write them with a UUID, which means unique identifier. This type is provided by Booster, so it just makes things simple for you. But you can write here string, you could write even, for example, number, or if you want to have, for example, an array, you will write array of string. But note that in this case, the terminal might get confused and it could think of these symbols as pipes, because in Unix terminals these are used as pipes. So in this case you can write them, the fields, in quotes, but we're just gonna keep stuff simple and we're gonna have our owner as a UUID. So we go ahead and submit that command and it will create some stuff for us. So we can see now that here in the commands folder, we have now a create account file over here. So we can go ahead and open it up, and we see some stuff. So first of all, we see some imports. We see that there's command import over here. We see that it's also importing something called register and UUID. Then we see a decorator called add command. Called command. All decorators start with add. And we pass some stuff to here. So this is the configuration of the command. This is like the minimal things that you have to configure over here. And here we have an authorize field. So because this command is exposed to the public API, we can specify who is authorized to execute this command. So in the previous video, we have taken a look at roles, and we have created two of them. We have created a client role and a banker role. So we can go over here and specify which of those roles can run this command, or as the comment says over here, we can authorize everyone by specifying an all string. But create account is something that possibly will be only executed by a banker. So we can go ahead and specify here an array of roles that can execute this command. So I'm gonna go ahead and write banker. So this is gonna be auto-imported here from our roles. And that's it. Well, I have some errors over here. Those are like stylistic errors because as you remember, the linter and the styler come already reconfigured for your booster project. So this will be fixed as soon as I save the file. So now we see the class definition because this decorator is decorating this class. What does decorating mean? Well, decorators are some kind of special function that take this whole thing as an argument. So when we write add command, actually a function called command, which is provided by Booster, is executed. And it's basically saying, hey, this class over here, just create account, is a command. So Booster knows that and already can figure out how to deploy your command in the best way possible, and how what stuff does it have to create in the cloud provider or wherever. So here we have our class called create account, and it has a constructor with the fields that we have specified in our console. So we have our owner, which is type UUID. Types are super important over here because Booster will create a bunch of stuff like validation and things that will help you deploy this to the cloud. For example, in other places like, I don't know, events, those types are super important if you want to store them in the database, which is what Booster does by default, but you don't have to be thinking about it. So just like as a note, always specify types in the fields because they are super important. So when you create your command, by default, Booster will set up all your fields as read-only. Generally, you won't be creating these commands by hand in your code. So having them read-only over here are quite handy, so we can just specify all of them in the constructor. Another great thing about the Boost CLI tool is that when you create something like a command, an entity, or whatever, the only thing that it does is create some code for you. You could have written this code by hand, and it will work. It's not like there's some magic thing over here, like in, I don't know, common or config or whatever. There's nothing else apart from this code. Oh, I've saved this file and it got formatted. So there's nothing magic. It's just regular code, and the only magic thing that's happening is this add command decorator, which is again plain code. So here we have already our create account command defined, and we can go ahead and create our other command. So we have to create a deposit money and withdraw money. So In the case of withdraw money and deposit money, I'm just gonna call it like deposit and withdraw. And yeah, we can go ahead and create them from the terminal. So we're gonna open up the terminal again. I'm gonna create a new command. I'm gonna say boost new command deposit. The fields are gonna be, well, first of all, we're gonna have like the amount that we're gonna deposit. So we have an amount field of type number, and these are gonna be the cents, just for simplifying stuff, because when you work with money, it's not good to just use floating point, but well, just to keep stuff simple. And also we're gonna have another field called account number, which is gonna be a UUID also. And why do we have to specify an account number? Because the command has to have like all the required information for it to work. We could, for example, in a typical application, probably you would have something like a session or something like that. But in Booster, you keep stuff simple and you say, okay, I'm going to deposit some amount of money into an account. And that's the information required for the command. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this one. And I'm going to duplicate the same command, well, like the terminal command, and I'm going to replace deposit by withdraw because they actually share the same information. So we can see that they have been created over here. But let's take a look at the command handler of create account, which we left over there. So we have created our class with our field, and then we have this handle method. This handle method is what we saw in our diagram as a command handler. The command handler is the thing that gets executed when the command reaches our system. So over here, we could go ahead and register some events. There's this comment saying where to put our events. But right now, we're not gonna do anything because we haven't created events yet. So we're gonna go ahead and check our deposit and withdraw commands. Okay, we see that there's also boilerplate generated for us. So we're gonna go ahead and specify who is authorized to execute a deposit. Well, in the case of a deposit, it actually can't be executed by the client. So we can go ahead and specify the client over here. So it's gonna auto import it from roles. And also we can go ahead to our bank office and tell the banker to do that for us. So we can also specify the banker. So everything else is well done. We can go ahead and save our file so it gets auto formatted. And when we go to the withdraw command, we're going to do the same. So I'm going to just specify here in the authorized field also the array of roles that can execute this. So client and banker. Save that, and that's it. So yeah, so take a look what we've created in this episode. We had our 3 commands that we already designed previously, and we have created them by using the terminal with the help of the boost CLI tool. So we wrote boost new command, named the command -- fields, and the field specified in the format, name the command, colon, type of the command. And that's it for this episode. Next episode, we're going to be talking about events. Stay tuned.